Welcome to the Startup of the Year podcast, where each episode we showcase exciting new companies from around the world. This podcast is produced by Established, creators of the Startup of the Year program. Established is focused on helping organizations with their innovation, startup, and communication strategies.
Hello and welcome back to the Startup of the Year podcast. I'm Frank Gruber, your host of the Startup of the Year podcast, as well as the CEO, co-CEO of Established, co-founder of Established, and the managing partner at Established Ventures. I'm excited today to introduce Robert Quinn. He's a trailblazing entrepreneur who founded the company MakeSense Technology. And it may sound familiar because we've talked about it a little bit before recently on some of our other podcasts. But excited because he's dedicated over a decade into advancing haptic technology for innovative solutions for the visually challenged. He's also one of the youngest sole inventors on the Defense Science and Technology Laboratory patent. He's received he was one of the recipients of a prestigious Young Innovator Award. And more recently, he won the CTA Foundation Fast Pitch Competition at CES 2025. That's how we got connected. And I'm excited to learn more about, his previous journey and up to this point and where he's going in the future with MakeSense and everything he's been up to. So, Robert, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And just to set base, you are based out in London, right?
We're based in London, but we've just established a US entity for our company.
Oh, great.
Actually, the market that we're kind of penetrating is overwhelmingly an American market. In fact, it accounts for about 50% of the global total.
Oh, wow.
So we're kind of midway through what's called like a Delaware flip, which is where you kind of exchange your London-based shares for Delaware ones,
wow.
Moving the company.
Sounds like you're talking to lawyers and figuring stuff out behind the scenes. That sounds like what that sounds like. Interesting. Well, good luck with that. Let's just, so everyone's might be unfamiliar with what MakeSense Technology is. Let's kind of level set here and share kind of what's MakeSense Technology, what's your mission, and how are you kind of addressing it? And love to hear kind of the backstory too.
Okay, sure. So in very brief summary, we're making a technology that's very similar to a guide dog. So it's a guidance technology that a blind person can use to get around through environments, and it's a handheld interface. It's a new type of haptic interface that we've developed over the past decade or so of research out of a university called Imperial College.
Okay, and haptic technologies, people may not know what that means, maybe a new word for some folks. Can you share like what that means to people?
Yep. So haptic technology means basically through the sense of touch. So that haptic means touch. And most people, when they hear the word haptic, that they presume it's kind of a vibration-based interface, vibration-based human-machine interface, such as like the haptic engine on your iPhone, for example. So yeah, that's what haptic means.
Okay, so it's in game controllers, phones, sometimes steering wheels, and now your device, which I think, do you have your device with you?
Yes. So we've got like a whole kind of multiple generations of device.
Oh, I'd love to see it. Yeah, like how's it evolved?
Yeah, so I can start with this very first one that this was basically the research discovery that we kind of spun out of the university. It looks very much like a torch, this kind of interface itself, and what it does, you hold it like a torch as well, and it can point left, right, up, down really, really rapidly in any direction. And so what we do is basically have someone hold this in their hand, and if it points to the left, they can follow it to the left, points to the right, they can follow it to the right, and it updates its shape so quickly, so rapidly, it's about 50 times per second, that it just fluidly responds to a person's movement. So say, for example, we wanted a person to find an object on a table. This interface is able to basically point towards that object, and no matter where that person moves their hand, it's always going to be pointing towards that object. And what we can do with that is basically provide closed loop feedback with respect to any point in space.
Wow! So it locks in on an item and just kind of makes sure that it knows where that is no matter what, and changes your hand kind of movement to make sure it's locked in.
So the application for this haptic interface is to get people to track, or to enable a blind person to track any arbitrary point in space, and that requires like computer vision as well. because this is just an interface that's told where to go. But if you've got an iPhone attached to it, the iPhone has got quite sophisticated capacity of computer vision, and is able to basically actuate the device to do the useful things. And the way it really, more fundamentally, the way it kind of works is we're calling it a proprioceptive interface. So we've all got a sense called proprioception. Proprioception is our ability to know where our hands are without looking. So if you close your eyes, for example, you can still touch your finger on your nose, and that's true even if you're blind. It's actually a good test to see if you're drunk, because if you're drunk, then you would touch someone else in your face, and that's why police officers do that when they pull you over.
Right, exactly.
But yes, because we can know where our hands are without looking, if we can manipulate a blind person's hand subtly using this interface, the person's able to follow their hand through an environment in a very similar way to how a guide dog would manipulate your hand.
Oh, that's really so based off that first version, you're able to kind of hone in on the fact that you could basically track an item, and then you've kind of tweaked the model slightly to focus on kind of everything around to make sure you're not colliding with things.
Yeah, so then we went from there to we've been for about 25 generations of devices, because we've got basically 3D print, and we could iterate about once per week on just making subtle improvements. This then was like the next one that kind of enables us to get kind of venture capital backing. Do you mount an iPhone to this part of the device, and basically it's then just a proper computer vision interface, as we're calling it. Very, very responsive, very easy to use, and very effective. But after we got venture capital investment, which was closed late last year, we basically found that by doing trials with blind people, that the majority of the blind people were making outdoor journeys only really cared about left and right. They didn't care about the up and down. And the finding objects wasn't as big of a problem as we thought it would be.
So interesting. So they don't have to worry about like curbs and like different grades and stuff like that? Or
we're not looking to replace the cane, because like to replace the guide cane that's a fool's errand. It's all you need to do is put a blindfold on and walk 5 meters to realize how like irreplaceable a cane is. It connects you with the earth. It's just a physical barrier in front of you, and it makes you feel safe. And if you tell somebody that you're going to take their cane away, or you're trying to replace the cane, that's just it's a non-starter. So because we've already got the cane in one hand and the device in the other, we don't have to worry so much about these tiny little like obstacles on the floor like a curb, but we do still need to worry about other contextual information, such as like stairways, doors, road crossings, but that can be communicated with audio.
I got it. So it's not replacing the cane; it's just replacing the dogs, the guide dogs.
The guide dogs, yeah.
Great.
It's even I wouldn't even go so far as to say it replace the guide dog. It's more guide dogs are incredibly expensive to train, incredibly expensive. So about $70,000 to train, and because they're so expensive, a lot of people that could benefit from a guide dog can't access them. And typically the selection criteria for the charities that provide them are really, really harsh. So they'll be like, are you of working age? Are you are you an active outdoor person? Do you require this for your job? These kinds of in Guide Dogs UK, for example, there's 3 rounds of interviews. They can supply 4,000 guide dog relationships in total. So guide dog typically retire after 7 years. There's about 100,000 people that could benefit from one in this country, and in America, it's approximately 5 times those numbers. And it's just enormously expensive. So Guide Dogs UK spent £127 million, which is about $160 million last year on servicing these guide dog relationships.
Wow.
So there's simply no viable technological alternative at the minute. That's been the problem.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about. Like it, I mean, we eventually replaced horses with cars, right? But we haven't replaced, guide dogs with anything.
Yeah, it's very true. And the first blind individual that we had into our lab, and at the time this company was literally in my parents' garage. It's literally a garage startup. First person we had to come in to test the interface in a simulation that we made. Got video footage of him, and we should probably release it at some point. But he was absolutely gobsmacked by this machine. he was like, "Oh my God, what have you made?"
Mhm.
And then he was basically then going off on the kind of tangent, saying like, how crazy are people to like have thought that, many years ago when guide dogs were first made, I'm gonna get a dog and train it to like lead me through space. Things like that as an idea is no crazier than what you've made. Sorry, it's much crazier than what you're proposing to do, which is have a machine do the same thing. So
Yeah.
like very driverless car or drone. Um, it just seems a bit archaic that kind of technology has not made mobility better for people that are blind.
Yeah.
Uh,
No advances really. So this is really interesting. So okay, so you've got this, you got the second rev, um, you know, and this is all while you were at university, right? We started at university and then you pulled this out studying the
yeah.
haptic technology. All right, so what happened next?
So I was at university doing a postdoc, I pulled it out,
Hmm.
and then started investing my own money into the company.
Yeah.
So I basically, when I left, the university had about $40,000 of savings. Like my parents are rich, this is all saved up for myself. Um, and yeah, basically I was like, I'm going to have a go, my best effort at starting a company based around this discovery because I think it's quite promising.
Hmm.
And luckily, basically, I got a research grant from the government, £500,000. Well, it was about $700,000. But when they awarded the $700,000 grant, they were like, "Okay, we'll give you $700,000, but you need to find $300,000 of private investment to match fund it." Uh, and at the time, I was like, "Oh, for God's sake, I don't actually know anyone that can provide that money." And they gave me a 30-day window to find the money. Um, and my mum, who is, she's a nurse, she's not well off. Like we'll remortgage the house to pay for the match funding. And I was like, don't be, that's absolutely ridiculous. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But then luckily I stumbled across, went to a public speaking course and met a guy called Andrew Secker, who's basically been one of our biggest backers. Showed him what we were doing. He had a go with it and he was like, how much money do you need? Basically, I was like 300 grand and then sent it to me. And
Wow.
like, we'd even signed any like paperwork or anything.
Wow, that's amazing. So you made it work. You found that connection. You got to the next step, and then eventually got some venture too. So now you showed that second version. Where did you go after that second version? And did you jump right into the version you're in now, or I know you said there were like 25 versions, but
There's intermediates between all of these, but like what we then started doing is just by we do a lot of trials with people that are blind. We've been working directly with blind veterans,
mhm,
working directly with the Royal National Institute of the Blind, guide dogs, etc. We found that people were typically like not really caring about the up and down, just left and right. And then so we're like, okay, can we lock this type of shape changing interface just to be left and right, and would that simplify it mechanically? Yes, it would. It was just as effective. And then we were like, okay, made another observation, which was that like you've got the shape changing interface that just goes left and right. A lot of people that are using are just using a thumb.
mhm,
So a lot of the blind individuals are just using a thumb. Like, so if you give this to a sighted person, they'll hold it as like like this normally.
mhm,
Give it to a blind person, they'll hold it differently. And we found that like, okay, people are just using their thumb to sense this. Can we just manipulate the thumb instead? Turns out, yes, it's equally effective. And then so what you end up with is basically something that's so simplified but unbelievably effective at actually providing guidance for environment as simple as manipulating the thumb left and right,
interesting.
but very, very quickly. And the reason, the way that this is effective is because it so fluidly responds to the way you're moving your body in the environment. So like if this is updating its kind of position 50 times per second in response, very responsive to the way you're moving, it eventually becomes like an extension of your body through kinesthesia. So you just don't even have to think about it, like, because it's micro adjusting all the time, just following it. And indeed, like a lot of individuals who are blind, the way they like to be kind of guided through space will be with just kind of literally touching their finger on your shoulder. So that's the way some blind individuals like being guided, which demonstrates kind of the possibility that just simple with one finger manipulation, so long as the finger manipulation responds it in response to some stimuli moving through the environment, it can provide extremely precise guidance.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, and they also have a little bit of a heightened sense, right? To be able to guide. I don't think I would do it just as well as they would, right? Like just because I'm not experiencing that all the time.
Yeah, and particularly Braille readers. I mean, so Braille is a really like ask. It's really fascinating the way that you can absorb information through your fingers, because like reading through a finger is kind of an alien experience to most people.
Mhm.
But for someone that's blind and that can read Braille, the person is absorbing vast amounts of data through their finger to do that. And it's apparently if you can read Braille, it feels very unusual to learn at first to absorb information that way. But then ultimately it results in a much heightened sense of touch in your fingers.
Yeah. And now, did you have was there somebody in your life that was blind that you saw this as a problem, or how did you figure out this problem?
So that's a question a lot of people ask is like, why did we do this? So I didn't actually have a like personal connection to blindness when the discovery was made. So when the discovery was made in the lab, we weren't necessarily even focusing on blindness, but we were focusing on non-visual interfaces. But as I started the company, as I kind of spun it out, originally we weren't even necessarily targeting the blind market. We were just like a non-visual interface is what the applications were. There's a few people that I interviewed, about 20 people. For straight off the bat, I contacted all the different charities and was like, who's interested in kind of like speaking to me? I'm a researcher from Imperial College. Got an idea that I think could be helpful. And after interviewing about 20 different people and having lots of them come in and test it, it was like, actually, like, everybody that I am interacting with is so kind of enthusiastic, so grateful, but that we're doing the work that we're doing. That's just like, okay, now I actually feel like I've got some kind of mission to do this properly. I've got more motivation now than I had before. And that's when I dropped out and just dumped my own money into this to accelerate it. And so although I didn't know any blind people before I started, now I've got like a vast network of kind of friends that are blind and people all over the world.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You've built this community. I mean, it sounds like you're doing a lot of product market fit research, just tweaking it constantly. And so I love that approach because you're getting to the, you've iterated to the point where it's just like down to what people need and why they need it, and you take a really great approach to that. So I think that's a really great lesson to learn from the way you've kind of approached this. Now, that does take time, and in a startup land, time is, you know, critical, especially when you're burning capital as you do this. So curious, has that ever been a challenge with that approach?
So cash is money. At the minute, we're probably burning about $30,000 a week.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, when it was just me, my time was free, and I could spend my money I could get a lot done with a very small amount of money. But yeah, now we're at the stage where we've kind of slowly realized after receiving this. So we've recently secured a multiple $1 million venture capital round. We're having to have a bit of a mindset shift from penny pinching, like the garage startup days, to being like, okay, we're now like a proper company, and a 1 week delay is costing us $30,000. Speed is absolutely everything now. And it's just, we've changed the way that we operate to a substantial degree. So like, we're pulling in subcontractors who otherwise we wouldn't have paid for before, and just trying to be as efficient as possible. We're gunning it to get to something to market by the end of this year.
Oh, great. That's fantastic. Yeah, so it's not out to market yet. You've just been obviously testing within like what you consider like a beta.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're testing at the minute. We're doing supervised outdoor trials, and
Okay.
we're putting up to doing unsupervised outdoor trials in the next couple of months. Because you basically, it's to make something like this is potentially quite risky, because it's basically providing guidance for environments that could be dangerous. So we have to be quite sure that what we've got is safe, or at the very least that what we have is able to tell the user when it's uncertain of a situation. So like what we don't want is like a false confidence, like a situation where the device thinks it's accurate to within a few centimeters, and it's actually not. That's the most dangerous thing. It's if our machine is able to just be honest with the user and say, at the minute uncertainty is 3 meters, like, or that at that, or 10 feet American kind of units, then that's okay, because the person, what are you left with? You're left with a cane and a smartphone, which is worse off than you were before. Before this machine existed, and you can still typically kind of get your way out of any situation that you're in.
Yeah, and you don't want it to be making bold decisions that may not be 100% clear, right? It reminds me a lot of early autonomous vehicles, right? Like I actually rode in one in San Francisco last week, and it's a weird feeling to not have a driver in the car, but similar kind of stuff. So you also have, like, you're leveraging the iPhone, right? As kind of visual, and what other things are you using technology wise to kind of make this happen?
So we were originally intending to use our own, like, onboard the device cameras and things like that. And we went to go and see a guy at Imperial College who basically invented, he's a well-known professor called Professor Davison. He invented what is the foundation of what's called SLAM, simultaneous localization mapping. It's a technology that's used for robots and autonomous vehicles to navigate environments. We showed him what we have, and at the time we were calling it a SLAM interface. We've got a SLAM interface that can make a SLAM useful for people that are blind.
I don't know if SLAM interface is the best name. Just want to throw that out there. So glad you changed it, as we're talking about navigating into things or away from things, right?
Not the name at all. But he was basically like, this is the best approach I've seen yet in the past 20 years for making SLAM, simultaneous localization and mapping, useful.
Right.
And he was, I'll help you do this. He was like, because I've been trying to do the same thing for like 20 years and never come up with anything anywhere near as good. But he was like, I'm going to give you one piece of advice that's like potentially going to change the course of your company's, like, his destiny. He was like, do not try and do your own SLAM. Because if you try and do your own SLAM, you will not succeed. He was basically like, Apple and Google spend billions on this every single year. You have to leverage the stuff that they do. And I have our own company called Slamcore. I don't know if I should be dumping Slamcore under the bus here, but like, basically he was like, we cannot possibly compete with Apple and Google. We've got tens of millions of dollars of funding. We've got the best people. They've got billions. He was like, Meta, he was like, basically absorbs like almost all of the postdocs from his lab, just with absolutely outrageously high salaries. He was like, use their platform. It's the only way, and it's the best way. And then we took that advice, and so now, in order to actuate this machine, we actually use an iPhone app, and we use the augmented reality development kit that Apple provide, which is an unbelievably sophisticated vision algorithm. Yeah.
I think it's a way smarter approach. I think it was really great advice, because you're right. Like, coming at it with millions of dollars versus the billions and billions that not just one company, but multiple companies are throwing at it. Amazon, I mean, I'm sure Amazon's got an effort, Apple, Google, I don't know, Waymo's technically, I guess, Google, right? But, they're separate companies. So lots of folks in that field trying to figure this out and have been doing it for a while. So I'm glad to hear that you're leveraging that, and it probably got you a lot further faster.
Yeah, I mean, the other big consideration for us for this particular market as well is the how easy the product is to, for example, program for someone who can't see. And so the Apple iPhone is an unbelievably, they've taken unbelievable measures to make sure that it's accessible to people that are blind. So in the United States, most people that have severe vision loss, they would typically have an iPhone. Because Siri interface is brilliant. All of the kind of touch interfaces they have for people that can't see the screen are very much ingrained in their whole operating system.
That makes sense. Do you envision yourself like partnering obviously with Apple to kind of, because they don't have any products like this right now, I don't think.
So partnering with Apple, we've got intention of doing. So when we met you at CES, that's the first time we've ever publicly said anything about what we're doing. So we have a website now, which is basically quite basic, but kind of very professional looking. But before, I don't know if you're involved in reviewing the applications for competition, but we intentionally had a very crappy website. It was intentional because we didn't want our competitors to take us seriously. Now we've kind of exploded onto the scene. We want to get into bed with Apple, and yes, we want to get into kind of with Meta potentially as well, because wearing an iPhone on a lanyard around the chest, we know that to be like a limitation for our user friendliness, basically, because people are worried about their phones getting stolen. But individuals are using this are worried about that. Whereas if we were able to do the visual part of our system with a pair of Meta glasses,
Yep.
Ray-Ban ones, that's more commercially attractive, and well, that's for our users, that's preferable. So yeah, that's we're looking to get affiliated with them as soon as possible.
Yeah, that really does. I mean, form factor matters, right? Like if they're not willing to wear it around their neck or whatever, however you're mounting it to their chest, you're right. And then I didn't even think about theft. Yeah, that's a big one. Like literally anybody could just snag it, right? And then they're literally they're stuck more or less. Okay, so I guess as you're building this out, what are some lessons that you've learned? Because you've now been, how long has it been we working on this for?
So I've been working on this about 2.5, 3 years. I've had a
Okay.
team for about 18 months or so.
Okay.
The team expanding rapidly. But yeah, lessons for others. I mean, I think that one of the big ones is that if you dive into something headfirst with, you quit your job, you put all of your money into something, you put all of your eggs into one basket, like I did. It's the motivation to actually just relentlessly pivot until you find some value somewhere is so strong. And I know other people that have tried to start their own businesses, and they kind of not succeeded because they got one foot in that and they got one foot in something else, and they just never really truly commit. Like if you're truly committed to starting a technology company, you're always going to find a way. And this is the first investor we had, this kind of billionaire hedge fund manager, who said gave us 300,000 at the beginning. He was like, I've met people like you before, and I can pretty much guarantee you're going to be successful. And I was like, why is that? And he was like, well, because I know that you were just going to give this absolutely everything. And like when you give something absolutely everything, then you find a way. You will not accept compromise. You will not accept no for an answer. And that's true. The first year I started working in the business, there was a period at which I worked for 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. I had one day off, and that was Christmas Day. And yeah, it's not that bad anymore, but that's how driven I was. And if you are that driven, I just really can't see how it doesn't really matter what you're doing. You're gonna eventually find something that people are gonna want to buy from you.
I agree. I love the drive. Obviously, you can see and hear through your sharing the story that you're really driven to do this and make it something that will impact a lot of people. I do worry though, so do fill that glass back up. Take those days you need them because you want to be in the right mental headspace to keep this. It starts with you, right? So make sure you're okay.
That was when I didn't have a team of people around me. Like now I've got like the capacity now I've got a team where I'm, there's nothing that I'm the best at. Like there's the team that I have is like everyone's better at something than me. In fact, everyone on the team's better at most things than me. And so like for me to try and do something myself now seems a bit silly because if I need some firmware development done, I could have a go at it, but I can do it. But we've got a fresh firmware developer now. If I need something done with like sensor fusion, I could have a go at it again, but now we've got mathematicians, physicists, and things like that. So eventually it becomes a lot easier and it becomes a lot more fun. When it's like that.
Yeah, and I love your lack of ego there because like a lot of people, still try to, especially on the CEO role, still try to do everything for a long time. So that's a huge step there. So all right, let's kind of talk a little bit more about haptic technology. You've done a ton of research in it and been doing this for a while. So what are some of the things you've learned while working in the space and kind of where do you want to see it go, I guess?
So things I've learned while working in space. So one of the things I've kind of recognized, and this is kind of Ad Spears' kind of teachings, not my intuition, is that the overwhelming of the majority of haptic interfaces are vibratory haptic interfaces. So like whether it's a vibration or some part of your body, like vibration by glasses, vibrating bracelet, vibrating belt, vibrating God knows, there's lots and lots of different ways to communicate information with vibration. Vibration is not a very good way of communicating directions. So it's as simple as that. Vibration is quite good at giving you an alert. So she's got a text message and it's very easy to integrate into other products, and that's where people use it. But But yeah, in terms of the field of haptics, novel haptic interfaces specifically designed for a particular purpose are always going to be more effective than a generic haptic technology that can be implanted elsewhere. That's one of the big things. So if people have there's myriad applications for haptics. Like, so say for example, someone's making a surgical robot and they they were looking for ways to provide feedback to the surgeon. Don't start with vibration just because that's the only thing everyone else uses, and that's it's easy to integrate. Have a think about what kind of stimulation you could give to that person's hand that's going to be more intuitive than that for that application.
That's great advice. I mean, thinking about it, how do I use it today? It's in my watch. Like, I have an Apple Watch, and so they just recently, I think Apple Maps has been using it for a while, but Google Maps just implemented it too. But while you're driving, if you have the maps open, it now just buzzes you. I don't know what the buzz means, other than you got to do something. Like it doesn't. It probably has some kind of it's on my wrist, so it's like it means make a turn probably.
Okay.
Is what it means, but I don't know if it's left or right because I can't physically understand if it's on my left side or right. I don't know if they're doing anything really tricky there to kind of explain where I'm supposed to go, but I do know I'm supposed to do something. So that it's an alert, like you said. It's a nice alert to tell me, heads up, buddy, you got to turn or do something, different. Yeah.
And it is very good at giving alerts, and so it can perk you up to actually concentrate on something. But then if you said you want to do some buzz left, buzz right kind of patterns,
I wouldn't be able to manage that. I don't know. I don't think it would register. It seems like a buzz. I don't know if what it's trying to tell me,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the problem with most other solutions that are on the market.
Yeah.
There's vibrating canes and stuff like that out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's vibrating bracelets for people that are blind. There's vibrating glasses, and they just don't work very well. Simple as that.
Yeah. But you were able to kind of, basically jump over that hurdle because of the way that you've kind of implemented it.
Yeah, so we've got the reason why computer vision, SLAM, augmented reality, there's really good advanced GPS that you can get as well, typically found in missiles and drones. The reason why this stuff hasn't utterly transformed mobility for people that can't see is simply because there's not been an effective enough human machine interface. It's as simple as that. If your vacuum cleaner can autonomously make its way around a room, that technology is able to also guide a person given given the capacity to actually communicate the right information at the right time with enough precision to be useful. But yeah, it's a really key thing that's missed by most other startups that try and do this, and most people just focus on smartphone apps. But you simply cannot get enough information out of a smartphone to do useful, precise navigation. And so you're left with very little.
Yeah, that's a really great points. And so you were at CES. Had you been to CES before?
No, it's the first time we've been.
First time. Nice.
Yeah.
You were part of the CTA Foundation pitch event, and there were 9 other companies there, and your pitch got the attention of the judges. And what was going through your head with the whole thing?
Well, first of all, I don't really take naturally to pitching and being on stage in front of a lot of people. I've never really been very good at that. And as I said, I've met this hedge fund manager literally on a public speaking course to try and get better at it. So I'm always a bit nervous when I go on stage. But the pitch that I gave was the 3-minute lightning pitch. I've practiced that quite a few times now, so I can kind of just go into automatic mode to some extent with it. It was designed. I paid a pitch coach to help me make that a couple of years ago or a year ago, and every time I do it, it seems to be very effective. I've only done it twice on stage, and that was the second time, but both times it's quite well received, because it's not obvious once you point it out. It's not really obvious need and a problem and a really compelling solution, and it's just a matter of communicating that.
That's great. Yeah, you did a great job, and you couldn't tell you were nervous. You just went off. You probably blacked out internally or something. Just did it, right? It's just automatic.
I had a slide point pick, one of those clickers that goes through the slides. I forgot to do that.
Well, you did, and you had a lot of props. I have to admit, I had to take the cane and everything. I think I dropped the cane on stage. It was a little bit.
Thank you for doing. I appreciate it.
I was a little comical over there trying to help you, but It worked
yeah,
out.
that was really helpful. I'm so glad you did that because
Yeah.
as soon as I came up behind the stage, I was a bit basically they're like, "Oh, we're gonna have give you a microphone." I was like,
I
"What do
don't
you mean
have
I have to
any
have
hands.
a
Yeah.
microphone?"
It's like, what am I gonna
But
do?
I ruined my entire plan because I've got like plans to pull things out of my pocket. I've got a pen in the other hand.
Mhm.
Like crap, that's going to be difficult. But then, yeah, luckily
It
you were
worked
the
out. It
patient
worked
grace.
out. Yeah, it worked out. Happy to help with the assist there. But so then you got the big check. Obviously, you had to get the big check home
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah.
That must have been a fun endeavor.
So we basically we wanted to keep it intact, and so we got it in our lab. And so we kind of sliced the back of it and
Oh,
folded
smart.
it up to the front. But yeah, the American that's paying paid into our American uh, entity basically. So like when we move over to America, we'll take the check with us. But it's quite cool to have the yeah, it's quite cool to have that. Always wanted one
Nice.
of those.
Nice. And then now you at CES, you were able to meet a bunch of folks. I'm assuming once, especially after you won, you got a lot of additional exposure,
Yeah.
met a lot of different people. What were some of the more meaningful conversations you had there?
Distributors from all over the world are interested in this. We kind of particularly we didn't realize that Australia was such a huge market, but apparently it's really is a massive market, particularly because in, people that are there who are blind have quite a lot of control over what technology they spend their kind of grants on. So you get a grant and you allocate it yourself. So in other countries, it's a position that allocates it to you, or like councils, or local council, whatever. In Australia, the consumer has the choice, and therefore, like if you make a really useful product, um, they're likely to choose your product. If you make a sexy product, they're likely to choose your product. We had a lot of interaction with also people that were blind. Stevie Wonder came to our store.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah, that was it was yeah, that was quite fun. I just got a couple of minutes warning before he came, and I wasn't actually at the booth at the time. I just ran back
Mhm.
uh, to be there basically.
Now, did he try it out? Did he
He did,
sample?
yeah,
Oh,
he
nice.
did. So he said, "Oh, this will be useful for getting around my house." I was thinking, you must have a bloody massive house. Uh, because yeah, he basically was like, "I'll get to my studio with this." He's known about this machine for more than a year now because his one of his friends is called Mike May, who is the director of orientation and mobility for the blind, the American Printing House of the blind. Um, and he's a very well known kind of blind individual. There's been a book about him called Breaking Through. He's an Olympic athlete. He invented the world's first laser operated turntable, and that's his first venture. And then his second venture was making the world's first GPS device for people that are blind, and that was in like 1999 or something. Um, and yeah, basically he's a bit of an unbelievable, well, he's an unbelievable person, really. He was blinded in an explosion when he was 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, he still accomplished all of this.
That's
But
amazing.
he's visited us a few times. Like the first time about a year ago, he was basically phoned me up somehow. He was like, "I've heard about what you're doing. I want to come have a go." And so he flew over to London to have a go with it. And basically, he was convinced of its kind of uh, potential on the spot. And so since then, he's been very supportive. And he was like, "Oh, by the way, my best friend is Stevie Wonder." And so yeah, he was like, "I'll get Stevie to use it on stage if you want." And I was like, "That sounds brilliant." And at the time, he said that uh, Stevie Wonder was having a sighted chaperone take him up to like his instruments. Um, and Mike May, who is he's a particularly independent and like outgoing and blind person. He's a bit of a kind of an inspiration for a lot of blind people. He said like to Stevie, "Look, you need to actually go out onto the stage without assistance because a lot of people will be inspired by you, or they are inspired to look up to you. Like they're going to be more people be kind of inspired to try and take more risk to get out there and do more on their own, which can be really really scary if you're blind. I mean, just making it just a simple journey can be terrifying. So giving people all the courage. Anyway, so then he started using an earpiece with like kind of verbal directions, and that's worked reasonably well. But like when this comes to market, hopefully he can use this to get ultra precise kind of guidance. This it can guide you down to about 3 inches of precision. So it
Yeah,
could like,
definitely. I think that you're right. Those coupled together, so you kind of know what's around, but also like you know, yeah, just like understanding what the terrain is. Like, is there like a coffee shop in the corner? Or am I just walking by is it a hardware store? You don't know, right? So I think those coupled together could be really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, so like what we kind of we originally pitching this as like this is a digital guide dog, but we quickly realized that's not a very good pitch, mainly because people like dogs and like the the idea that we were going to replace it. That's not like an appetizing thing, and also as it got more and more advanced, we realized actually it's not a guide dog. This is more like a sighted human chaperone. You know,
Yeah.
the way AI is going is like, towards this idea that you can generally have a machine that understands the environment, you have a machine to describe the environment, and if you were, for example, leading a blind friend or whatever through an environment, you would give a huge amount of audible contextual information. So you would be like, oh, we're passing through a narrow door at the minute, or we're just about to go down some stairs, or like this kinds of information that just adds so much more context and understanding of where you are, and it makes it so much more comfortable to make a journey with this machine. And we've got blind individuals on our team, but we also, as a rule, I make everybody, even the people that aren't blind, have to use the device all the time blindfolded. So if you go to lunch like a place down the road, you have to get there with this, and that's the quickest way to like find the bugs, quickest way to find the friction points, and it's also the quickest way to find the kind of pain points for actually trying to make a journey when
Yeah.
you can't see the environment ahead.
Yeah, there's something to be said for walking in someone's shoes, right? Or drinking your own champagne. They used to call it
Yeah,
eating your own dog food. I think that's a little too close to home for this. That's the
yeah,
metaphor, especially when you're talking about guide dogs and things. But yeah, really, really great. Now you aren't you're a for-profit company, obviously, but you do have this, societal impact that you're making. Seems like
yeah,
there could be some potential partnerships and things that, with different organizations that are, care a lot about accessibility and
yeah,
folks that are blind. I mean, I think there's a real play there as far as getting, helping those people, but also partnering in different ways. Have
yeah,
you looked at those yet? Obviously, I know you're a slim team, you're still focused on building this thing out, but I'm just trying to
yeah.
plant
So
seeds, I guess.
connections to these kind of large global charities that like cater to people that are blind are like incredibly important for getting this into the hands of the right people, for like onboarding these individuals, and for making a product that's as useful as it can be. Because like there's no point. It's almost impossible to imagine what it's like to be blind. You can put a blindfold on, but that's not going to come close to a lived experience. And like but the fact of the matter is that being blind is extremely rare. Like it's extremely rare. It's there's vision impairment or vision
Mhm.
loss, and then there's severe vision loss, and then there's blindness. Like even a lot of people with severe vision loss, there's about 270 million people in that category in the world out of about 7 or 8 billion. That's
Mhm.
pretty rare. But the overwhelming majority of those people don't require a guide cane. They don't require like, they might require a magnifying glass to read, but they can still get about just fine. The actual number of people that could uh, have vision that's kind of low enough to benefit from this, about 39 million. Um, of those, you then have to divide it further. But basically, reaching the people that we want to reach would be impossible unless we were to target these organizations that already have the contacts and the community support amongst these individuals. So yeah, we've partnered with quite a few in the UK, and we're kind of trying to establish relations with some of the American ones. So that includes Perkins, Veterans Association, and the American Printing House for the Blind.
Yeah, that's gonna be huge for distribution, right? And getting the word out. Now, we didn't talk yet about the economic side of it. So let's talk about price point and is there any other like subscription or anything like that? Like what's the model?
So we want this to be as cheap as it can possibly be. But as I said, like this is an incredibly niche market. And in order to make the economics work, it's costing millions and millions to develop to the point where it's usable. We have to recover the costs. But we were originally thinking that the retail would be about $3,000 for the device. And that's because there's quite a lot of really expensive components in the device. So like in this machine itself, you've got a really precise antenna for the GPS reception, which is kind of a helical thing that is made in Japan. It costs about $200-$300 just that one component.
Mhm.
And for an OEM, $300 for the one component. We then also have what's called an RTK GNSS, which is a very precise type of GPS chip that's normally found in a missile. And in fact, the GPS chip that we use is subject to export bans, and it can't be sold in like certain countries. And that itself costs another 100. And then we've got all kinds of other things in there. So it brought the cost up to like, say we have to make at least a 75% margin in order to be sustainable as a company. But we've now been trying to down cost like this stuff. And so we recently we contacted this guy who's an antenna expert, and his name's Brian Collins, and he's basically retired, and he doesn't really do much apart from consult for defense manufacturers. He loved the application so much, he was like, I'm going to help you make your own antenna. I'm going to design one for you. So you don't have to buy off the shelf, and it's going to cost £20 to make, $30. If we can get that kind of if we can get an antenna that cheap, it massively reduces the cost, because they're like, the times can cost by 4 to get to a retail position. And yeah, we're hoping that we could eventually get it under $1,000 for the consumer, the end consumer, basically.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you could do some kind of campaign with one of those partners that you said, where it's literally like they're pushing, like, help somebody with this by getting this device for, whatever the price point is with the donation, and you guys get some, they get some, because it keeps their organization going. Like those types of partnerships could be really helpful, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm quite interested, but I'd love for the big American, or not even just big American, but I'd love for the global Linus charities to invest, because like, it would be amazing if the profits from this company end up going back towards the organizations that are purchasing it. I'm not particularly financially motivated, and when I basically had an interview for venture capital round, they're like, "Oh, do you want to be rich?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to be well off, but I'm not, beyond a certain threshold, I'm going to give all my money away to charity," because I think like, I think having an enormous amount of money is not healthy, and it impacts your life in a negative way. So basically, I've set a threshold that I'm going to give all my money away after that. And yeah,
that's great. Yeah, so basically, become to the point where you can become a philanthropist. That's a
the VC backers, and I said that in the interview, they were like, "Oh God, he's going to be like trying to make this too cheap. He's not going to be prioritizing profit." And then they basically were like, "That's a bit of an issue." And I was like, "I'm still going to be prioritizing profits, because there's no point in doing this unless you can make a profit, because like it will lead nowhere. Like you will end up with nothing if you can't make a company that can sustain itself and continuously reinvest in what's made. There's no point in doing it, because
you didn't say you were a charity. You said you'd like to eventually be a philanthropist. There's a difference, So I think that's key, right.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yep, that makes sense. All right, we're at about time. I wanted to make sure we had a chance to share anything else you're working on, anything else obviously you mentioned partnerships, and are there other folks that you're trying to connect with to kind of, like, I don't know where your funding levels are at right now, if you're trying to raise or whatever, so anything like that.
So we've got a really ambitious, that we appreciate that, like this would be an incredibly unusual thing to do, but we're hoping to never have to raise money again. So we've raised the multi-million-pound seed round, a multi-million-dollar seed round, and we are still like, because we're kind of having a bit of mind shift change for spending, but we're still like very conservative with our spending. No one's had a pay increase, including myself. I'm only paying myself like $60,000 a year. My business partner's the same. Despite the fact that the VCs want us to pay ourselves at $200,000. I know that's just a stupid use of cash. I'm more interested in a long-term success than I am in a high salary, and getting something that's out there's going to be useful. But so yeah, we're not actually looking to raise capital right now. Although, if someone were to come along and say, like, I absolutely must invest, and I can add this, that, and the other in terms of connections, advice, just helping us succeed, then we're very open to it.
Yeah. Now, how do your other investors feel about that? Because they're going to want some kind of return eventually. They put that money in, and they expect, something within the next 5 to 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
They're going to get a return. They're going to get a bloody massive return. Like they're going to make a lot of money, because this is going to be a successful product. So they're not so concerned about me having the attitude that I don't want to raise more money and go for hyper growth, because they've seen what we can do with such small amounts. The idea that we got a paper published in Nature, which is the top scientific journal in the whole world, with $300,000 pre-seed investment, and did so in my parents' garage, and still had $100,000 of that left over. The amount of money we have now, we're going to be able to do an awful lot, and we should be able to get to a self-sustaining, profitable phase. At which point, everyone's made a huge return on their investment that's invested. They are very supportive of the investors we have.
Well, I love your scrappiness and obviously grit to do this. You can see the passion oozing out from what you're doing and trying to solve this big problem. And it's really, from my perspective, thinking about what we talked about before with all the other companies tackling this on the autonomous car space or the mapping space, like, what you're doing with the limited amount is really amazing. So congratulations, obviously, on winning at CES. At the CTA Foundation pitch, but also just continuing to build and focusing on your customers, because you're doing a lot of that. So thank you so much. If anyone wants to get in contact, how's the best way?
Best way to contact us or contact me is through the website. So we've got a website where there's a contact us form, and so like investors, interested customers, interested anyone that's really interested in what we're doing, contact us through that.
So MakeSenseTechnology.com, or what's the correct website?
www.makesensetechnology.com. So if you just Google MakeSense Technology, it should be the first one.
Great.
And very, very much looking forward to kind of having people contact us. And we've had a lot of people contact us since CES as well, through LinkedIn and on all sorts.
I would assume so. You're doing something really innovative. So thank you so much, Robert, for being here. It's Robert Quinn. Thanks for joining us from MakeSense Technology. They're leading the way in innovative haptic solutions with their products, and obviously had a great conversation here today. So for all those listening, remember, there's no better time to start than today, and take a page out of Robert's book and just get it going, get it started, and continue to iterate. And please join our community, Startup of the Year Network, and we offer our educational discussions like this, as well as other resources to support you as you look to take your startup to the next level. Until next time, I'm Frank Gruber signing off. Thanks so much, and thank you again, Robert, for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Startup of the Year podcast. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll be back with another episode soon.